Yeah, what got me here? Okay, well, my drug of choice was alcohol. Um, I had not been like a lifelong abuser, just more like a recreational, discovered it in college and of course did my fair share of binge drinking. Um, Fortune brought me to Colorado where I got to live a ski bum life, and there's when it sort of developed into weekdays as well as weekends, because that kind of ski bum life is, there's a lot of raging involved, right? And celebrating, a day on the mountain is not only traditional, it's mandatory. After leaving that environment and landing back in a more normal adult environment, right? Left Colorado, moved back to Indiana where my support system was, for the kids, right? It dawned on me pretty quick. That wasn't how normal people drank, right? So I was aware of the issue. It kind of got worse because I was doing a little of my own pouting about leaving Colorado. And as you know, alcohol is a depressant, and then I started kind of isolating and sort of shrinking away from my family, and drinking more and more. My wife and I together came to the conclusion that yes, Reggie needs help. I went through a 12-step program. It was 1 week, right? It was a couple days of detox and then 5 days of meetings, and then they kind of kick you out and they say, go to meetings and do that for the rest of your life and you'll be sober. They didn't tell me that I would be sober and unhappy, right? So I got about 6 months of what we call white knuckle sobriety out of that. In other words, force of will and believing in my head that if I did what they told me, that things would get better. And there were some improvements in my relationships due to my sobriety, but that kind of thing that I thought would be there, I thought I would feel so much better. And I had these expectations of sobriety would be a lot cooler and awesomer and more fun than it was for me at that time. Therefore I relapsed, right? And I was kind of off and on, drinking for a month, not drinking for a month, somehow managing to not get a DUI, not get fired, but just tumbling into this dark hole until, about 8 weeks ago, we're like, okay, we have to do something, obviously, because I was testy and barky with the kids and hungover all the time unless I was drinking, which I was doing very, 24/7 at this point. To stop the sickness in the morning and then just to maintain, and it was just horrible, right? So we have to do something, right? The wife and I both agreed. And all I knew was I didn't want to do what I did before because it didn't work. And I was not in a state to dedicate myself to a lot of research. I was clinging to just life. She found this place through, as we do these days, through Google, and looking for a recovery program that was not 12-step, that was the polar opposite of what I went through because it was not rewarding for me or successful. She talked to Kat. She then introduced me to the website. I watched some testimonials like this one, and then I talked to Kat, and that's when I sort of knew, right? Like, here, like, okay, that's where I want to be. Whatever they're cooking up down there, I want a piece of that. Some decision making had to occur, right? And it's funny now, after being here 7 weeks, that I was thinking, oh my God, 8 weeks. Ugh. There's a reason why they incubate you here, right, for that amount of time. It takes a while for what they're teaching to sink in, especially when you're coming out of a haze from whatever your substance is. So there was some decision making, some wrangling, a lot of logistics, but once I landed here, like literally landed, once I got off the plane, when Mike picked me up, he says, how are you doing? And I said, scared and hopeful and a lot of emotions all at once. And he calmed me down. He reassured me that this might just be where I need to be right now. And it didn't take me more than a couple days to realize, yeah, man, the universe has given me something. And, I don't want to get too spiritual about it, but this is the best thing that ever happened to me, for real. And I'm not saying that because there's a camera here or, for any ulterior motive. Even if I did not have the problem I had with substance abuse, the problems that I had with loving myself and how I was approaching life that would have been enough reason for me to go through this program. Because the stuff that was at the bottom of my, terrible behavior, both to myself and to my loved ones, is what we talk about here. And what has gotten infinitely better and put me more at peace. I did detox. It wasn't a long time. I was in maybe 2.5 days of detox. But after my initial intake process, I was real nervous, and I had just finished my interview with Mike, and there's a lot of questions and signing documents, and the reality starts to kind of sink in a little bit, like, oh my God, okay, I did the thing that I said I was going to do, and now I'm here, and now, oh my God, what are the next 2 months going to be like? And then Maria, the nurse, came out, and instantly I felt like a sense of calm, and she was so gentle and so attentive, and I was so grateful. And again, this was only the second person that I met from Gulf Breeze, and they both had something in common, which was I felt they cared about me. So I came in, in the evening. So by about 9 o'clock, we had finished intake and done the vitals, and she gave me a couple pills to help me calm down and sleep and, get through those first, typically rough days of not drinking. Tucked me in, checked on me every couple hours, and really made me feel loved and cared for. And that process, that detox thing that I was kind of trepidatious about coming down here, went by without a hitch. Obviously a little bit of a blur because of the mental fog that persists a lot longer than the physical symptoms. But they eased me through that. And yeah, Maria's got a special place in my heart because she was the first one to take care of me and to treat me like a human being, which I didn't get at the facility that I had tried, a few years back. They treated, I was a prisoner, basically, right? It was a crime to, think about leaving. Here I could walk out the front door if I want and go right over here to the little pier and hang out and get a little sun and a little breeze off the Gulf there, and it's it's different from what I experienced. I've been to 2 rehabs. I'm by no means an expert on this is what all rehabs are like, but it was a sea change from the one experience that I had, and every bit of it was positive. The way we're treated, with dignity and respect and love, honestly, to be truthful, the folks that work here because they want to, and I've heard that from their mouths multiple times. There's a sense of we're all in this together, A lot of the staff here have been through what we've gone through. Maybe not the same substance, maybe not the same circumstances, but, there is an empathy that comes with we've been there, and I can feel this with you and understand where you're at. That's helpful. So after detox, when I started thinking a little more coherently, I was, let's do this, right? I had a lot to lose, and I was committed. Once I made the decision to come here and to be here and to let these folks do their thing to me, because I saw other people benefit from it, and my thinking was, okay, it's a long time, which is a little scary, but I'm going to trust the process, right? And until I feel otherwise, until there's a moment when I'm there, when something feels wrong to me, I'm going to just trust the process, and I'm going to, follow their guidance, try to keep an open mind and take advantage of everything that's offered here. And that ended up working out for me. After getting out of detox, I moved into my room, and then there is a schedule that I was following, right? So after leaving detox, I moved into the room where I've been for the last 7 weeks. Began the process. Their kind of methodology is we'll kind of get the brain going, then we'll kind of do some body work in the spa phase, right? And then the class work, and that's a month when you get into those classes that are where the rubber hits the road and allows you to kind of process everything that they're teaching here. But getting there takes a few weeks, right? You're doing neurofeedback pretty intensively for the first week or so, which what I was told, and I guess it worked, it feels like it did, was it kind of allows your brain in a very sciencey, feedbacky kind of way to set some new pathways, right? Which I guess enhanced my calm. So the neurofeedback portion was about a week, right? Rewiring the brain, helping Reggie calm down, and sort of easing me into the process that's gonna, work for the next few weeks. There's the spa phase, and that is a time for yourself, hang out with your thoughts, sweat it out. It's kind of a rite of passage around here, really. And then you begin the more thoughtful phase, where we're in classes with the different counselors and guests come in and we get a lot of different perspectives, and with that you have time between the classes, after the classes. They give us enough free time here to dwell on and process and let what they're teaching sink in, and trusting that process and knowing that that I was committed to it and I was going to let them have their way with me, ended up panning out. It's designed that way for a reason, and I got to be honest, I had fear, let's call it fear, because that's what it was, about the duration of the program, and that was a big part of the decision making, was sort of overcoming that mental hurdle of 8 weeks and saying, it's a decade-long problem that I'm trying to fix. Let's give it 8 weeks to see maybe that is how long it takes. And it turns out, at least in my case, in the case of a lot of my colleagues that I've seen, that I've been in here with, that feels about right. It's weird to think that when I first landed here, before I kind of got my feet wet and I was still in detox and I was still like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in the right place, but what is going to happen? How are they even going to keep me busy for that long? But around like the 6th week of being here, I started looking at the calendar the other way, like, oh my God, I've only got 2 weeks left and then I'm going to have to leave. Like, to think that I'm going to be missing rehab when I go out into the real world is not something that Reggie would have thought he'd be saying at this point in the journey. You make friends when you're here, and that's part of the process. Believe it or not, you will. I did anyway, and I think it's common. I picked up a lot from other guests here, other people who are going through the same thing as me. And seeing folks that had gotten here 2 weeks before me, right? The difference in them than when I first met them, and basically being open to the fact that maybe this process is part of their chilling into life and their sort of more relaxed, less antagonistic approach to life, and more, this is what it is today, this is now, and this kind of just zen aspect of a couple of the guests that I've befriended since I've been here. I wanted it, and I was able to sort of let go and trust that the process is designed to allow me to get there if that's inside me, which turns out it is in everybody, right? We're all born perfect, right? A baby is gonna cry when he needs his diaper changed, and when his diaper's changed and he's happy, he goes right back to happy. He's in a moment. And that's a lot of what we kind of learned here, and what took me a minute to understand. Like, again, the process is laid out the way it is because that's what they've figured out works for folks, and it ended up working for me. But when you're ready for it, and they give you enough time to be ready for it, when you're ready for it, it just naturally occurs. It wasn't sitting in a class, taking a note, thinking about it, and then applying it. It was hearing different flavors of, a message, which is, it's kind of in you, right? And you don't have to pay attention to the thoughts in your head that aren't beneficial, right? You have hundreds of thousands of thoughts a day, and some of them you can just pitch. With a little practice, with a little time to let that stew, something clicks. It's difficult to quantify, but it worked for me as it worked for a lot of the folks that I've been in this program with, is you just sort of realize spontaneously that you have a lot more control over your happiness than you thought you did. And there's a freedom with that. There's a sense of calm that has come over me just in the tail end of this, enterprise, this journey that I've been on. Something has sunk into me. It's gonna sound hyperbolic, but this has been transformative for me and has given me my life back. And when I've talked to my wife on the phone or to my mom, they have been moved to tears and said, "Oh my God, it's so good to have like Reggie back. I haven't heard that giggle in 10 years. And that's a good feeling to have that validation from folks who know me as well as they do, that that change has occurred. And it is, I don't want to get emotional or whatever on camera, but the things that have happened to me here were a long time coming, and I am just blessed and grateful that they have enabled me to kind of set that old dude aside. The guy that walked in here 7 weeks ago was a mess, and he didn't think too highly of himself and was stuck in a rut that was not productive to his health or to the health of his family or to his loved ones. And somehow by kind of letting go of the reins and allowing these wonderful people to guide me through this healing, I can safely say that I'm not that dude anymore, and it feels good to not have to be that person, because you can't keep that up. You can't keep up that lifestyle, no matter what your drug of choice is. The time and energy that you're just gonna waste on it isn't worth it. But there is like a hope and a feeling of release, right? I'm giving us a lot of thought to describing the change, but the change has been tectonic in my life. It sometimes is a struggle to put into words, but it's good to know that I can healthily, right, not force it, but with good conscience and from a place of compassion for myself, close that chapter, right, of the book of my life and move on to, Act 2 with tools that I didn't possess, and a confidence and a comfort with myself that I didn't possess prior to coming here. And I think not having that and seeing your behavior and feeling out of control, and let's face it, hating yourself and judging yourself, that was perpetuating the problem. And these guys here helped me put all of that aside, and put it to bed for good. But it worked for me. If I could have found this place 20 years ago, A, we could have avoided all the nonsense that got me here in the first place. But B, it would have made me a better person. There are people that I know that don't have a chemical addiction issue that I would love to send here. Just take 2 months off, hang out down here in this beautiful place and connect with yourself and connect with this knowledge that's in you that you don't know you have. But once you're able to sort of peel away all the BS that's, all these thoughts that plague folks, you're not good enough, whatever. And just sort of be reborn into that knowledge that you had all along, but was blocked by all your kind of thinking and habits and neural pathways that have worked for you. So you're going to keep doing them. Shed that and just get to know yourself and be comfortable in your own skin, regardless of your history and the fact that you don't have a problem like an addiction problem. Yeah, I'd love to send folks here just for what I got out of it. Early on in one of my classes, one of the counselors said, stopping something isn't what we do here. In my last session with my therapist, Colleen, right? My little game changer. I said, hey, I'm only here for a couple more weeks, so should we talk about my alcohol abuse? Or, my game plan for when I get out of here to avoid, you know, triggers and all that. And she goes, well, we can talk about it if you want to. And my response was, you know what, I don't want to. We haven't really done a lot of that yet, and I don't think I need to. Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about? That seems counterintuitive, and it's the opposite of what, and this is my personal experience with a 12-step kind of modality, wherein that is your focus. Your addiction is your focus. It's your identity. Starting every sentence with, my name is Reggie and I'm an alcoholic, wasn't working for me. And I knew that intuitively. I stuck with it out of desperation to maintain sobriety. But I often had a feeling of, this can't be good for my health. To constantly say I'm an alcoholic, or to sit in a room with a bunch of people that had the same problems, and instead of talking hopefully, talk about our alcoholism for an hour, and then go home not feeling restored, feeling like I did the thing because I've been told that's the thing I need to do to stay sober, but just being sober and not happy, right? Whereas coming through this program here, I'm a hell of a lot happier. And we did all of that without talking about my, quote unquote problems. What we did was we just restored my overall health. My mental perspectives changed through going through this program. And that's why I don't have to say I'm an alcoholic. I can say I had a drinking problem. Yeah, big time. But that's the old me, right? Not to say, hey, I'm cured and this is, a magical place, and I can guarantee you, hey, I'm no longer an alcoholic. I just choose not to label myself that way. That is not going to help me, when I leave here. But I also have like a knowledge, like an intuitive wisdom, and that's a word you'll hear here. The wisdom that's kind of inside you, that the process here kind of helps you uncover. But I know that part of me has died? I don't know if that's the word. But I'm under no obligation to be that person anymore. And there will be triggers. There are liquor stores. Hell, my drug of choice is advertised on television, right? But should I get triggered, or should I hear that little voice, hey, it would be awesome right now? I can say, dude, I hear you, that part of me that honestly believes that alcohol is going to help because that's the way you've been trained. I can say, hey, that's okay. I know you're trying to help, but we're not going to do that right now. And that's something I did not learn in a 12-step program. I've read cover to cover about 25 books since I've been here. That's probably not typical, but I did want to throw myself into the process, and what the library that they've curated here will tell you the same thing in different ways. And so I've come to appreciate some authors more than others, and so I've read all the Amy Johnson stuff and all the Brene Brown stuff, because those two women kind of spoke to me in a language that I was receptive to. One thing you'll hear in our sort of classroom type work is take what sounds good to you, take what sounds true to you, and pitch what doesn't, right? This isn't, you must believe this, and here's the wisdom and the rules that you need, and you must follow this set path. We're going to present you some stuff, and hey, if something rings true, keep that and think about that for a while, and see if it sinks in, or if you have an insight about that, or if that cooks into you and helps you, then keep it. If not, don't. But it's the same message. Regardless of which book, you pick up, you're going to get this perennial message. It's not like anything new. All your major religions have been talking about, the power that's inside you, and just love and compassion and awareness. of your thinking, right? That's the key, is just acknowledging and being aware of, and then practicing. There are thoughts coming in my head. Some of them are okay. Some of them are wonderful, and I'll cling to those. Some of them are, hey, don't forget about your past, and you're an alcoholic, you're an addict, and you hear these voices. I can say, psh, I'm not going to focus on that one. I'm going to focus on the ones that I choose, right? So the thoughts kind of over time, and hearing that you have that ability over time while you're here. And I didn't think it would happen. I was so skeptical of that, right? I trusted the process, but I'm like, come on, man. This is like talk radio up here. But you do get to choose. And accepting the fact that you can, and then just being aware that you can. Just the magic of awareness and knowing that fact, that I can pay attention to the thoughts that I want to, and I can ignore the ones that don't make me feel great. Just being aware of it enables you to do it. There were a couple of things that did come to me spontaneously, like during a session. When I was talking to Becky with one of the counselors here, I kind of put a couple of things together about my past that I hadn't figured out before, right? And just using that EMDR, right? It's a trauma processing protocol, eye movement desensitization and reallocation, maybe. Anyway, I was doing those sessions with Becky, and part of that process, or maybe it was just the blurting out of stuff that I had, kept down here for a while. I was able to put a couple things together and connect them in a way that was super healing for me, and super healing for my parents when I told them about it. So that was, like a textbook insight, like, right? But a lot of the beneficial things that have changed in my thinking since I've been here have happened over time, and that's probably why, we chill out here for 8 weeks, because week 6 and week 7 is when you're all the stuff that they've been putting into you, right? Which I wouldn't say overwhelming, but it's a lot to take in. Especially when it's different from stuff you've heard in other programs. The stuff that percolates into your consciousness just organically, just when you're sitting there thinking, or even like playing a board game with the guys in the lobby out here, that comes to the surface a little bit at a time, and you're able to see I don't know, it becomes a part of you before you know that it's a part of you. It's a great feeling when you realize that this change has occurred. I was not able to put a finger on an insight or a specific time when that change happened, but when I became aware of it, that was like a happy moment. Like, oh my God, I just realized, that thing that I had been thinking about myself for so long, I don't believe that anymore. I get to not believe that ever again. And when it sinks into you like that, when it's coming from, your heart or your wisdom, or, whatever you want to call it, that depends on your religious bent perhaps, and again, what you pick up here that you like and that you keep. When you feel it that way, you don't ever feel it the other way again. When you understand something intuitively and deeply like that, you don't lose it. And it did not take long for my wife to pick up on it. I'd only been here a week or two, and we were talking on the phone, and she was super moved, and I could hear it in her voice, and maybe she was crying, I don't know, but she was really moved, and she expressed to me that she was so moved and so happy that I was actually listening to her for the first time in, who knows how long. I had been up my butt pretty good. I was just calm enough and relaxed enough to listen to her, not just with my, prefrontal cortex or whatever, but I was listening to her emotionally, listening to her heart, and just allowing her to tell me about the day and what the kids were up to. But I was doing it in a way that she had not experienced in a long, long time. And that was a good starting point for me to say, hey, this is working. You know, and I just got here. I just got out of the fog, and already like I had changed in a way that I did not do that once, right? It wasn't, hey, cool, and she's happy, now I can go back to, you know, being a chump. That kind of thing that I was doing with her, that listening and actually caring about what she was saying and not making it all about me, it's kind of just the new me now. That's just the way I am, which is the way I was when we met, and the way that I was not when I was in the throes of my little pity party / alcohol addiction. One of the biggest blessings around this time of in my life, that in this period here at GBR, the greatest blessing is that my children are 4 and 5, and they'll only get to know, pardon me, the awesome me. I'm hoping that they'll forget the short-tempered, sort of irritable, not present one that got on the plane that they said goodbye to. But that's the greatest gift, right? Is that we did it when we did it. It would be awesome if I could have done it earlier and maybe never had some of the problems I had, you know, vis-a-vis addiction. But I'm here now, and I'm 47. You would think that's a little late in life to, you know, turn it all around and kick that dude out the door that I was, and be this dude who's going to leave here, who's going on mentally and emotionally in a way that I probably haven't had since I was 5 years old. Just being in the moment and just feeling and approaching life a lot more appropriately and a lot more healthily. Thank God it happened now. Well, this is a conversation I may have even had in my head recently as I'm thinking about, you know, leaving the safety of this place and going back into the real world. One of the things that we talked about in a video conference session with my wife and my counselor was I was able to fire her from the position of being my handler, you know, / interpreter, you know, translator, right? Protecting other folks from me, and kind of, you know, putting on this sort of veneer of, yeah, but it's not that bad, right? Obviously, you can see that Reggie's going through some stuff right now, but it's not that bad. So I fired her from that position. I can handle this now, right? Which was a huge relief to her. And after saying it out loud and believing it, you know, I felt a lot better. But explaining when I get home and there are maybe some people that are like, okay, so how was your 2 months at the beach? Right? Because I had gone through a 12-step program, and that had worked for other members of my family. Why didn't it work for Reggie? Who knows, right? I wasn't picking up what they were putting down. I am picking up what they're putting down here, and it's working great for me. But the change, hard to like wrap up in one sentence, right? Because a lot has happened. The Reggie that walked in here was a self-hating dude that, you know, really didn't respect himself enough to put down the bottle, and believed that he was not worthy of love and compassion, and acted in a manner that indicated that, right? I wasn't drinking because being drunk all the time and having a drink in the morning to keep from puking is a great lifestyle. I was doing that because I felt that's what I deserved, right? What I learned here is that was not true. And this will be weird to say this out loud, because the guy that walked in here could never have done this. Never in 1,000 years would have said the opposite. But I am worthy of the love and compassion that the people around me have been trying to give me, that I've been, right? And those things that I had been doing, that person that I was, no longer gets to define me. it is a fact, right? But that's the past. And we're not going to dwell on that. We're going to live in the present. And, you know, thank God I came here when I did, because I still have some time to gobble up a lot of life and a lot of love and to be present for my kids. The change is indescribable. But in a nutshell, I guess it's awareness of my thinking, understanding that I have a little bit more control over that than I thought I did. And for me, and this might be common, right? Because I've talked to a lot of my colleagues, fellow guests, that, you know, when we get one-on-one and we have a moment where we're really talking heart to heart, it's a common theme is that we don't feel worthy, right? Just worthiness in general is sort of an abstract thing to us. Coming to terms with that and believing that it's my birthright, that's the biggest change. To be able to appreciate you're a good person, and that you deserve love. That was the biggest thing. And I had that was, man, I had buried that. I put it in a steel coffin, put a padlock on it, buried it for 3 decades. Reggie did not deserve love. He was a piece of shit. I'm going to do what I'm going to do because that's what I deserve, right? That opinion, that's legacy stuff from, you know, trauma that I suffered when I was a kid, which again, you know, not a real uncommon thing in addiction from my understanding. But man, it stuck with me so hard, and I had carried that burden of that belief system around for 30 years, maybe a little bit more. And to be able to just and put that down and say, we are done with that. Man, what a relief. And I couldn't have done it without this place, without the combination of all these people around me that truly do care, that help me get there, and the time in which to do it. What a relief. Seriously, like just a burden that had been dragging me down and making me make dumb decisions and just think horrible, just self-perpetuating negative thoughts about myself just for so long. And now the clouds have, you know, lifted and the birds are singing. You know, that's a little hyperbolic maybe, but there is such a relief. Such a relief and such a peace that I didn't think I would ever feel in my lifetime. And now I get to have that for the rest of my life. While my family was upstairs, right? My beautiful wife who loves the hell out of me, my 2 children who think I hung the moon were upstairs playing and laughing. And I was in the basement drinking vodka, playing video games, isolating, pissing in an empty vodka bottle because I didn't want to go upstairs and have people see me. I went from that to this in 8 weeks. It's a challenge to believe it. It defies what the old me would have used the word logic for. Your brain would rather be in an uncomfortable, familiar environment than try to think something new, right? And that was, and again, that was kind of one of the sticking points for me with the 12-step modality is it felt to me, particularly when you start every sentence with, hey, I'm Reggie and I'm an alcoholic, that neural pathway is getting reinforced. And I knew intuitively that wasn't going to work for me. And it turns out, you know, evidently, because I relapsed, right? It turns out that did not work for me. But yeah, you got to change the way you think. You change the way you think, you change the way you behave. Your behavior is based on your, everything's based on your thoughts, right? Stuff happens in the world. It goes through your personal lens, right? The lens that you filter, you know, let's call it reality through is, you know, based on your history and your thoughts and your opinions and what your parents did and blah, blah, blah. So stuff happens, it goes through the lens. A thought is born. The thought's going to predict how you behave, you know, and your mood, how you feel, right? Cool thing is you can grab that thought right here and be like, I'm not going to think about that one. That's not healthy for me. I don't believe that anymore. Anyway, next thought comes in. Oh, gratitude. Well, hang on to that one. Yeah, that's how that. You got to change those pathways, right? You can't, if you change your thinking, you're going to change your behavior. I guess what I would say to like a prospective guest, right? Somebody who's thinking about this place seriously and has maybe some of the same hesitation that I did, right? Particularly around the duration, right? It's a big commitment. That if you are open-minded, right? I came into this being of the mindset that I did need help, and it was help that I couldn't give myself and that I probably wouldn't accept from my loved ones. And making that commitment and making that decision, okay, it's a little bit of time. It's 8 weeks, but it's at least 10 years of nonsense that we're trying to, change. I'm going to go into it with an open mind and trust the process, and that ended up working for me in a way that better than I anticipated, right? I had high expectations coming here, right? Just based on the testimonials and the knowledge of what didn't work for me, and kind of my intuition that maybe what they're cooking up here is kind of what I need to receive. So that I had high hopes, and in my mind I had pictured things that I was going to get out of this, but the actual experience exceeded any of the. I mean, I couldn't even conceive of the change that would happen to me through this process and through being with these people, and just being open and accepting of the guidance and not judging myself really or the process, and allowing the change to happen and to percolate and to ferment, over the time period that I was here. Yeah, astronomically better than even what I was imagining. And as I was sitting on the plane coming down here, right, coming to grips with the fact that I've made this commitment, time-wise and financially, so we're going to do it, right? The goals that I had and the person that I thought I could maybe be, that was in my mind before coming down here, forget that. I'm way better. I'm so much healthier and happier and at peace with myself. That was a big thing that I thought it would be like, let's get some tools, right? Let's come down here. Let's learn some tools, how we can get through life and maybe kind of put that addiction behind and not have to worry about. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about being present with my kids when I get home. There's more than one way to do this, and this is the way that worked for me. God bless my brother-in-law that he was able to achieve sobriety with, a 12-step program. I'm glad that worked for him, but I don't know. It didn't sit well with me. There were a lot of things that I couldn't work the steps, right? You know why? Because I didn't want to say I was powerless. That alone doesn't ring true to me. I have a problem, and I keep repeating the same dumb behaviors, but I'm not powerless. I knew that intuitively. And I've learned the veracity of that belief being here. I'm certainly not powerless. All you gotta do is think differently. That's all you gotta do.